Okay, great. So yes, so the topic today is citation management and citation managers. And whoop, of course, we're all familiar with this problem. You know, if you've been at research for any length of time, you probably have a few dozen or maybe a few hundred PDFs of articles and documents and maybe books or book chapters, preprints. And so you're immediately presented with this problem of managing all these documents and organizing all these documents. When I was in grad school and even before that in undergraduate, we didn't have citation managers back in the days of the dinosaurs. And so back then, what I did when I was doing research for a paper or something, I would use index cards, right? And so you would write out your reference on the index card and you'd put it into your little index card holder, and that would be how you managed your references. So it was a bit time consuming, of course, to have to write out each reference. And of course, you couldn't change styles easily, right? You were kind of stuck with whatever style you decided to use and put on the card. So it was a real chore. And this is something that a chore that researchers have been coping with for a very long time. I mean, if you go back and look at the patent literature, you can find all kinds of patents for different cabinets and desks, for storing cards and documents and files. This on the left here is a US patent from 1935 for a card index cabinet. And there literally are hundreds, if not thousands, of these patents for different types of document storage systems. And a few years ago, I came across a very interesting paper that was written in 1899. It was written by an engineering professor, and it was called, the paper is called The Catalog and Clipping Case. And he's basically talking about this piece of furniture that he's designed to store his references. And he's got this great line in there. He says, the day of the always up-to-date engineering encyclopedia has not yet arrived. The engineer is forced to either be his own walking encyclopedia or else adopt some method of filing in as accessible form as possible the vast amount of information which is daily presented to his attention. So even, you know, over 100 years ago, people were really struggling with this issue of how to store documents and references in a way that was accessible. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to just briefly describe what a citation manager is, give you some reasons for using a citation manager, and we'll talk about a few selected citation managers that are available to you here at Queen's. And then I'll go over the core functions. As I said, citation managers, they all function more or less the same. And then I'll cover some of the more advanced functions that you might not be aware of, and talk briefly about other uses and some general tips for getting the most out of whatever citation manager you decide to use. So what is a citation manager? Well, it is a piece of software that is used for storing, organizing, and annotating references, and then generating bibliographies from those citations or references. Now, these software have been around for a very long time. One of the earliest that I used way back in the days of the dinosaur was called ProCite, which came out in about 1985, and it was a DOS-based citation manager. And I actually ended up using that in a job I had in a library in about 1989. And then EndNote, well, ProCite is out of print. I don't think it's available anymore. EndNote, which is still around and is available here at Queen's, actually was launched in 1988. And it was launched first as a DOS program, and then it became a program for Windows and the Mac. So EndNote has been around for a very, very long time. Now, why should we use a citation manager? Well, if you follow the media, if you read the news on a daily basis, it seems like we hear a lot about plagiarism in the news. People getting caught in cases of plagiarism. Even journalists, some very well-known journalists like Margaret Wente and Fareed Zakaria from CNN have been caught plagiarizing. And I think, I think in a lot of these cases of plagiarism, it's not deliberate. I think it's just cases of people who are maybe too busy and taking shortcuts and maybe not managing their sources very well. And then it's so easy to accidentally cut and paste something from a source. And if you're not managing your sources, your references very well, it's very easy to lose track of that and accidentally plagiarize. And so that's one reason that you really should consider using a citation manager, is that it makes the writing process so much easier. It's going to help you avoid those accidental cases of plagiarism, or just losing track of, where did you get this fact from, or where did you get this data from, which article. And because plagiarism is one of those mistakes that really can hurt your career. I mean, in some cases, it's really a career-ending mistake. So some other reasons for using a citation manager. Well, of course, it makes it easier to manage all of your reference in one place. You have one library that you can go to every time you need to find a reference. You can use it to upload and store PDFs and other file types if you wish. You can generate bibliographies in hundreds of different formats. You can use it with word processors, so you can use it with Microsoft Word. Some of these citation managers work with Google Docs. Some of them work with other word processing software. You can organize your references into meaningful collections, and then you can share those collections with colleagues. So if you're working in a big team or something, and especially if you're, like we're doing now, where everybody is working from home or working from other countries even, you can use these citation managers to share references and collaborate on writing projects. And then finally, they make it a lot easier to remove duplicate citations. So if you're doing a lot of searches, if you're doing a comprehensive lit search for your research project, you're probably going to come across duplicates. And so these citation manager software make it very easy to remove duplicates. So that takes us to our first poll. I don't know how many people here today use a citation manager, but if you do, I'd be curious to see what the group is using. So if you could post the poll and just select which citation managers you use. Okay, so it looks like most people are using Mendeley and BibTeX. Okay, so a lot of LaTeX users here today. That's not surprising. But Zotero is also popular, and EndNote X9 is popular. Okay, and so only one person is not actively using a citation manager. So that's great. I'm glad to see that everybody is actively using one of these citation managers. Okay. So what citation managers are available to you at Queen's? So the ones available at Queen's are on the left side of this slide. So we have EndNote Basic, which is actually comes with Web of Science. So we subscribe to the Web of Science database, and built into it is a basic version of EndNote. And so if you go to Web of Science and you create a Web of Science account, and then every time you use Web of Science, you log into that account, then you can have access to EndNote and use it to store references from Web of Science. We also have the Queen's, about a year ago, I guess now, purchased a campus license for EndNote, the full version. And so the current version is called X9. And so if you're a Queen's student or faculty member or staff member, you can get a copy of the full version of EndNote and install it on your laptop or computer. And then there are a bunch of free options. Of course, we have Mendeley and Zotero, which are both free. Originally, they were web-based, but now they also come with a desktop version, so you can install it directly on your desktop. And then BibTeX is the free software that works with LaTeX. I always want to call LaTeX a word processor, but it's not. It's a document preparation software. And so BibTeX is a little more crunchy than the others because it does require some coding. And so if you like to code, if you like to hack around with code and are already using LaTeX, then BibTeX is probably not a big challenge for you to use. And then we also have things like in MS Word, there's a built-in reference manager. And I know a few people use that instead of these other packages. Now I can't keep track of how many other different citation managers are out there. Here are just a few. So there is RefWorks, which is a commercial product that you can buy. It's a web-based version, so there is no desktop version of it. And then there's something called SciWheel, which was formerly known as Faculty 1000 Workspace. And that is one of these freemium type software where you can sign up and use a free version that's basic. And then if you wish to have more advanced functions, then you can pay a monthly fee to get access to those. And then another one is called PaperPile, which I just heard about the other day, actually. And that's another commercial product. Although I see it does offer a free 30-day trial. So if you're curious about it, you could sign up for 30 days. So there are lots and lots and lots of citation managers out there to choose from. I think the ones that we have here at Queen's, Zotero, Mendeley, and EndNote, I think those are perfectly adequate. I haven't tried any of these others, but I can't imagine they would do things terribly better or different than the ones that we have access to. I should also mention that most of our databases, like Web of Science, like SciFinder, like Engineering Village, those all allow you to save references. All you have to do is create an account, and as you're doing your searching, you can save references into your account. They're really not citation managers, but they are a way for you to save references so that you have them on hand as you're searching. Some of them too will also generate a citation. So you could pick a reference, generate a citation in the style that you wish, and then cut and paste that into a document. So it's a pretty primitive. It's certainly not citation management, but it does give you some basic abilities to save references and generate citations. So some of the core functions of these citation managers. So you can use them to create citation records. And these records contain what we call in the library biz metadata. So that's data that describes something, other data. They also download and import citation records from many databases and search engines. You can also drag and drop and import PDFs to create records. Of course, they all allow you to organize citations. So you can organize them in folders and subfolders. You can annotate citations. So if you want to make comments about a particular article, you can insert those annotations. You can use them to store your full text articles. So you can just attach your PDF to the record. And then, of course, you can use them to insert citations into documents and generate bibliographies. So let me pause here. And if anyone has any questions or comments.
But I'm curious to know if you know, Mike, how, I guess, what is the user rate on campus, or which one might be used more than another, or maybe in our field, what are you seeing? Is it BibTeX or LaTeX as being the primary use?
I think probably in physics and astronomy, it's probably LaTeX and BibTeX. You know, when I first got here to Queens, I would always, when I met new grad students as a group, I'd always ask, how many of you are using a citation manager? And, you know, 12, 13, 15 years ago, almost no one raised their hands. And now when I ask that, probably 2/3 of the audience is already using a citation manager. So it really has changed. It's gone from when few people were using them to now almost everyone is using them. And it's a little different in chemistry. I find that about 1/3 of chemistry grad students don't use any citation manager at all, which always surprises me. But again, that number has been shifting over time. So it's dropping the number of people who just don't use any citation manager.
And we have a great question. Go for it, Jen.
Yeah, that's a good question. So Zotero seems to be most popular. Is there a reason behind it? Is it more user friendly? I don't think it's more user friendly. I use Zotero and Mendeley and EndNote, and I don't notice a huge difference in I think a lot of it's just preference. They're all kind of, all of these have been around for a while, and so they're all kind of converging to the same thing, right? They're all, because when one citation manager adopts a new feature, that puts a lot of pressure on the others to also adopt it. And so everything is kind of converging to the same functionality.
Mike, I was so excited to see that EndNote and RefWorks are still popular, because that is what I used a while ago. So I was really glad to hear that. I'm curious, many people after their academic career may be entering the private sector or the public sector. Are one of these programs used more in those sectors?
I think probably the Mendeley and Zotero are probably used simply because they're free, and they're both well supported. Mendeley's owned by Elsevier, which is a big publisher now, and so they're going to support it, you know, going forward. Zotero is supported by a nonprofit organization, and I gather they've had a bit harder time getting funding to kind of enhance it, but I don't think Zotero is going to disappear anytime soon. But Mendeley is, I think, definitely going to be around for a while. Okay, let me jump into EndNote. Okay, so here is EndNote. And this is a pretty standard interface or dashboard. The layout is basically the same in Zotero and in Mendeley, where over on the left side of the screen, you have your folders in your citation library. And so you can see here I've got lots and lots of folders. I've been using EndNote for a long time, and so I've got lots of references in my library. I probably should go through and clean it up, because some of these are for very old projects, and I don't need them anymore. In the middle of the screen is where you see lists of references. So if I click on one of my folders, if I pick a folder, I can then see all the references in that folder, and you can see author and year and title. And then if I select one of those references, it will pop up in the column on the right here, or the panel on the right, and it will show me all the metadata for that reference. So this is an article. I'm looking at the authors, the year, the title, the journal, volume, page numbers, DOI, et cetera. Abstract. So that's the kind of the basic layout. And there are basically three ways you can put references into your citation manager. The first way is just manually to do that. So on EndNote, I can click on the new reference icon, and that will open up a blank record. And so I've got all of these are all empty fields here. The default reference type is journal article, but if you want to change that to another type of document, then you can just open the menu and scroll down. You can see here this menu has got numerous different format types. I mean, we have web pages, we have television program, podcast. So you can usually find the type of reference in the menu. It's even got standard. So if you're working with standards, engineers tend to cite a lot of standards. You can select that. But the default is a journal article. And then you simply go through and manually put in the author name, the year, the title, so on and so forth. Fill out as much of the information as you wish, and then save the reference. Okay. Now, if you have a PDF with this reference, then you can, over on the right side here, you can click on the paperclip icon and go find that reference on your laptop, and then attach it to the record. So now I have the citation record, and then I have the PDF. Okay. And then it just goes into my folder. Okay, so that's the first way that you can add references into your library manually. Another way you can do that is by importing a PDF. So if you've downloaded a PDF from a database onto your laptop, you can simply go to, there we go. So go under File, Import, File, select Choose, go find the file on your laptop. Make sure the import option is PDF, and then import. And so it will automatically create a record for you. So PDF articles have embedded in them all of this metadata. And so when you bring that PDF into EndNote, it will read that PDF, find the metadata, and then it will fill out the citation record. So you see that the author names were automatically put into the author field, the year, the title of the journal, so on and so forth. So that will save you a lot of time typing. Now, Mendeley and Zotero make it even easier. So what you can do with Mendeley and Zotero is you can just take your PDF file and drag and drop it into Zotero and Mendeley, and it will do the same thing. It will automatically create a record and populate all the fields for that article. Okay. Now, one tip about working with PDFs, not all PDF documents have this embedded data. You know, for example, if you're working with patent PDFs typically don't have this embedded data. So if you try to import a patent PDF or drop it into Zotero, the software is not going to know what to do with it. It's not going to find all that metadata to create a record. And so you'll have to manually create the record and populate with all the data. So just remember, not all PDFs are created equally. So that's the second way you can get a citation into your EndNote. Another way you can do that is to use a search function. So in EndNote, if I click on the little globe on the menu bar here, I have a list of databases that I can search. So if I want to search, say, PubMed, which is, of course, the big biomedical database, I can select PubMed, and then I can put in whatever term it is. So if I want to look at abstract and put in a keyword, so I'll put in yeah, let me try this. Probably break EndNote, but so if I'm looking for articles about COVID, I can search, and so it found 61,000 records in PubMed with COVID. Let's just download the first 5. So I'm going to retrieve records 1 through 5. It'll take a second. Okay, so but there they are. The first 5 records from PubMed that had the word COVID in the abstract. Okay. Now, I'm just going to move these into my folder so I can add the references to there, and now they're in my library. And then I have 4 other databases here, but there are actually many more. And if you click on more in the online search, you can open up a long list of other databases that you can connect to EndNote and search from within EndNote. So a lot of, I don't know if archive is one. No, I don't think so. But Google, I think Google Scholar is one. No, but there are many other databases you can choose from. And so that's another way. Now the last way is to download and import from a database. And so if you, let me stop sharing for a moment. And going to go to Web of Science.
Mike, may I ask a question while you're searching?
Oh, yes, yes.
We have a question from Connor. In ADS, I can look up a reference and see data for all articles that they reference, but also add paper that cites the given article. So I can traverse the web of literature pretty quickly. Does EndNote or others do the same thing?
No, it doesn't. The citation managers aren't built to do that. And so, yes, so that's something you can do in ADS. It's also something you can do in Web of Science. So once you find a paper in Web of Science, you can quickly link to all the references in that paper, and then also link to all the papers that cite that paper. And so you can explore the citation network in both directions. But that's something you can't really do in EndNote or these other citation managers.
Also,
yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to add. I was looking this up. I believe that you're completely correct that in EndNote and Archive don't necessarily play well together. But if you need a workaround, the Chrome actually has plugins. So there are some plugins to go around that if needed, and Zotero will work with Archive.
Oh, that's good to know. I did not know that. So yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for your question, Connor. Okay, so let me. So I'm in Web of Science now. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so here I'm in Web of Science, and I'm just going to do a quick search. Just a very quick and dirty search. And I have a bunch of references. So Web of Science, I can select references, and then I can export them. And Web of Science is owned by the same company that makes EndNote. And so both EndNote and Web of Science work pretty seamlessly together. And so when you've selected some records to export, you can just select EndNote Desktop, and it will automatically export those right into your EndNote. And there they are in my imported references folder. And so now I can move those into another folder. Okay, so I'm back in my EndNote, and then here are the 3 references I just downloaded from Web of Science. So it's really very easy when you're working in a database then to import things right into Web of Science, into EndNote. It works well with other databases like SciFinder or Engineering Village. And our Archive, if you have the Chrome plugin, you can just bring references in very quickly. Now another important function in EndNote, we have the reference here, but we don't have the full text. And so if you want to find the full text, then you can simply select the reference and right click, and then go down to select Find Full Text. And it might prompt you to log in using your Queen's Net ID. And so what it's going to do now, it's going to reach into the library, into Queen's library, and it's going to attempt to find the full text of that article if we have a subscription to that journal. And in this case, it did not find it. Let me try one more. I find that this feature works much better on campus. I'm not sure why, but working from home, it doesn't seem to work as well.
Is that something where the Queen's VPN could be helpful or not?
You know, I have VPN running right now, and it does not seem to make a difference. I've asked ITS about this, and nobody seems to, you know, figure out what exactly is going on. But I know when I'm working from my office on campus, it works. I would say 2 times out of 3 it will usually work. So it's not perfect, but it is a handy feature. Okay. Now let me quickly show you how this works with a word processor. So if you are writing a paper, okay, so here we are in just a blank Word document here, and I'm just starting to write. And so if I get to a point where I want to drop in a citation, I do have the EndNote plugin installed with Microsoft Word, so I simply go to the EndNote on my Word menu, and then select Insert Citation. And it's going to open up a little search box that I can use to find the citation that I want to insert. I can just search by keyword or author name or something, and it will show me all the references from my library that match my search. And then I can just select the reference that I want to insert, and it will insert it, right? And so at this point, I can just go on typing, drop another reference in, type some more, drop another reference. And then you also see here, it's at the end of my document, it's formatted the reference in the bibliography section. Now this, I'm using right now, the style is ACS, but I can change that. And I can just go to my toolbar here and select another style. So if I want to change this to APA, it changed it to APA. So very easy to switch between styles. This is pretty useful if you're submitting, you know, maybe you've submitted an article to one journal and they've rejected it, and so now you want to prepare it for another journal. So you're going to have to probably change the style to whatever that other journal uses. And so this makes it very easy to do that. Okay, all right. Any questions here? Okay, let me, so we're kind of running out of time. Let me switch back and share my last few slides. Now, some of the advanced functions that these products have, all of them allow you to share your libraries with colleagues. And you can also sync libraries. So if you're part of a team, you can all be synced to one library of references, and you can all contribute references to that library and also annotate references if you want to make notes or comments to your other teammates on the references. The important thing here with sharing references is that you always want to make sure to sync your library so that the library that lives on your laptop is going to be syncing with the library in the cloud that your teammates have access to. You can set up the software to do that automatically, so that you don't have to remember to sync your library every time. If you don't sync, then your people are not going to be able to see what is in your library. You can also use it for collaborative writing, again, by sharing references if you're writing a paper with other people. I've already showed you how to retrieve the PDFs automatically. That works super well on campus, not so well off campus. I've showed you how to search and retrieve citations from within the citation manager by connecting to those other databases like PubMed and and Web of Science. You can use it to track a reading list. So if you have a folder of references, you can just click off which ones you've read and keep track of your reading that way. And then something else you can do is you can, there are a lot of blank fields in these records that you can use to create your own custom subject headings or custom classification or any kind of notes that you want to put into the reference as a way of helping you find the reference or organize the references. So I'm curious, so here's our second poll. Most people indicated they were using a reference manager already. What of these kind of advanced functions do you use? Okay, so just a few more slides to go, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. So some general tips about using citation managers. Always check your data. Remember the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. When you're downloading references or importing PDFs to create records, check to make sure that all the data is there. Some databases are better than others. Like PubMed is high quality, but with Google Scholar, I've often found that something's missing. Either page numbers are missing, or maybe the author names are misspelled, or there's some other problem like that. And so you don't want your references to have all these errors. And so just double check your data and look at the PDF document, for that reference, and make sure that everything matches. Because you don't want a bibliography that's full of errors. Back up your library regularly, just in case you lose your laptop or it crashes and you can't recover it. Put your backup on a thumb drive or on an external drive or something. Clean up your data. So delete duplicates, delete unneeded references. I have to admit that I'm pretty bad about that. I've got a lot of old junk in my library. Cite consistently. So for example, if you're using a style that allows journal abbreviations, make sure all the journals have abbreviations. It really bugs me. It's kind of a pet peeve when I'm looking at a bibliography and I see full journal title, and then a journal abbreviation, and then another abbreviation, another full title. It's like, be consistent. And then remember, you can also create your own custom styles. So if you wanted to generate a list of references with abstracts or with annotations, you can do that. You can take a style and then you can add in whatever field that you want in that bibliography, whether it's the abstract or maybe your research notes. Okay, so our last poll.
Can I ask a question first, Mike?
Oh yes, please do.
Apologies. This is again from Connor, and another good question. Do these systems talk with Overleaf in any special way, or would you just output a .bib file to put on Overleaf?
That's a good question. I have not really played around with Overleaf too much. I'm not a LaTeX user, and I just signed up for Overleaf this summer, and so I don't have a ton of experience with it. But my understanding is that it would work best, I think, with BibTeX, and so I think you can export from most of these reference managers in a format that BibTeX will understand. Mm. And so it's a bit more complex, but I think that's how I would do it. You'd have to export it to BibTeX, and then BibTeX would talk with Overleaf.
So it sounds like no, Connor, it's not going to do it automatically for you. You need to do a little bit of work there.
Yeah, and Overleaf I don't know how people here know what Overleaf is, but it is a LaTeX editor. It's a web-based editor that kind of makes writing in LaTeX much more like word processing. It's a very visual, what you see is what you get type interface. Now that we've, yes, so if the library offered workshops on how to use different managers, would you attend? And what would you prefer? A live workshop or maybe a recorded tutorial? And so, great. So yeah, so it looks like there's some interest if the library offered a regular workshop. Um, it is kind of hard. We've had this debate in the library a lot about, what should we be teaching these tools? What should we be teaching? Because there's so many out there, and do we want to do a workshop on all of them? But that's great feedback, and I'll certainly take that back to my colleagues to discuss. Having said that, most of these tools have excellent online tutorials, recorded tutorials, documentation, help files, and so you can learn a lot just by watching those and going through the documentation online.
I guess I should ask, Mike, are there specific librarians at the university that do hold expertise in each one of these reference styles that people would connect with, or is it easier to go through you?
Well, I think our librarians in Bracken, which is the health sciences library, they are, I would say, the EndNote experts. They use EndNote pretty heavily. I'm a regular user, and so I can answer most questions about it pretty easily. But the health sciences librarians really are the experts there. I think everybody kind of, with Mendeley and Zotero, we're all, I wouldn't say we're experts, but we kind of muddle our way through. I mainly use Zotero and Mendeley for like teaching purposes. I don't use it for my own research purposes. Yeah, so I would say start with your liaison librarian, and if they don't have the expertise, they can connect you with another librarian that might.
Mike, if I may, there's a question in the chat from Dawn. It asks, is there anything to be aware of when transferring reference libraries between platforms?
That's a good question. And when you're doing something like that, it's pretty straightforward. There is a file format called RIS, which is kind of a universal file format for reference managers. And so if you want to transfer your library from EndNote to Mendeley or vice versa, you would export it in RIS as an RIS file, and then you would simply import it into your new manager that way. And it usually works seamlessly because all these citation managers know our RIS and can handle RIS format.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. Let me just kind of wrap up quickly. Good. Yeah, so just very quickly, in addition to using the citation managers to manage documents, you could use them to manage other file types, spreadsheets or photos or image libraries, primary documents, or even multimedia, if you had movie files or whatnot. You could kind of use this. I know there are specialized software out there for managing multimedia and photos and things like that, but you could also use EndNote to do the same thing. And then finally, some useful resources. So yeah, so I've already mentioned liaison librarians are a good place to go for help. The library has a really excellent guide to citation managers. So if you wanted to kind of dig down and compare features, Zotero, Mendeley, EndNote, You could do that in our guide to citation managers. There's also some very helpful information about connecting EndNote to the library. So remember when I was showing you how to find a PDF from a reference. Well, you have to set up EndNote in a very specific way to link to the library, and so that information is in the library's guide to citation managers. And then we also have a very excellent guide to citing sources, which will link you to all kinds of style guides and websites that explain APA and ACS and IEEE and all the different styles you might encounter. And then, of course, it's always handy just to have a style guide on hand that you can consult from time to time if you need to. APA, Chicago, Council of Scientific Editors, we have all of these in the library if you don't have a personal copy or want to buy a personal copy. And then, as I mentioned, the online tutorials and help files at Mendeley and at Zotero and at EndNote are really very, very good resources. Okay, so I'll wrap things up there, and if you have a few more questions,